Alright gang, the last two stories have been kind of bummers, so let's try to liven things up before we part for this edition of the Rolling Stone with something that is both tragic and comedic at the same time. Those are always the best stories, the ones that combine tragedy with comedy. And here it is from NBC Bay Area. So this is the San Francisco local affiliate for NBC News. San Francisco to launch pilot program paying people not to commit gun crimes. I kid you not. The city of San Francisco is actually going to be paying criminals not to shoot people. My gosh, we are living in some bizarre world of parody. One of my personal theories about UFOs, gang, now, is that they are extraterrestrial in origin, but they're not here to observe mankind. They're not here to colonize. They're not here to conquer. They're just recording things because we're like the best reality TV show that you could have. I mean, you think of all the people who are dedicated to reality TV, which in and of itself is an oxymoron, because if you wanted reality, why would you need to watch it from the other side of the screen? But I think that the aliens, they just think that this is a riot. They don't want to conquer us. I mean, my gosh, we give them too many hours of entertainment. And this story has to be at the end of one of the spear tips of that enjoyment. Because the idea that a major metropolis is actually going to be paying criminals not to commit crimes is one of the dumbest, stupidest, ideological, naive things that you could even conceive of, let alone actually execute. Here's the thing. In a civilized society, not shooting people is just a given. It's one of the basic norms of civilization. If you actually have to bribe people not to shoot others, not to shoot their fellow human beings, their fellow citizens, their fellow travelers on the way to eternity, then you don't really have a civilization, do you? You don't have anything except maybe a concrete jungle, as Upton Sinclair wrote about in his novel, accurately entitled The Jungle, and you're just the zookeeper who is desperately trying to shovel as much red meat as you can lay your hands on all the lions and the panthers and the tigers to keep them sated so they don't go over and kill the gazelles or mutilate the zebras or take down the giraffes or eat all the cuddly little penguins that everyone loves to see. Anyway, from the NBC story, San Francisco is launching a pilot program in October, just in time for Halloween, that effectively pays people $300 a month not to commit gun crimes. The goal of the program is to reduce gun violence across the city. It will start with 10 people who want to change their lives and become community ambassadors. Participants will have to pass an interview. "We're doing this to make sure that we don't have more senseless violence," said Cheryl Davis, executive director of the San Francisco Human Rights Commission. The Human Rights Commission says the idea has shown to be a cost-effective way to reduce gun crimes in other cities. Oakland and Richmond have similar anti-violence programs. The payments come in the form of gift cards, and the spending habits are tracked. Yeah, first of all, even if the spending habits are tracked, they can trade those cards in for cash. This is like how people cheat actually on their SNAP cards and on their food assistance. People will actually trade those cards, buy things with the cards for certain people, and then get cash back. Okay, so there are ways to exploit the system. And also, to bring you back where it says Oakland and Richmond have similar anti-violence programs, yes, they do, and neither one was successful. From the website Rebel News, which also picked up on this story. This is Rebel News now. The first iteration of the program was run in Richmond, California, dubbed Cash for Criminals by local media. A similar program, which was tried in Sacramento, yielded poor results according to the Washington Examiner. It was also tried in Sacramento, where its promoters boast that only 44% of participants were subsequently arrested on new charges. Well, as long as you don't count about 1/3 of the participants who dropped out or were arrested in its first 6 months, wrote David Fredeso for the Washington Examiner. Violent criminals need jail. They do not need cash. People who shoot other people need to be walled off in prisons and kept away from the rest of us. Amen, brother. I agree 120% with that sentiment. Criminals need to be jailed. They need to be punished. That's why we have the saying, crime doesn't pay. They don't need to be rewarded with something as flimsy as this. Because here are just two observations, gang. First, where is the money going to be coming? $300 a month? $300 a month. That's actually, not bad. What is going to prevent people from actually becoming criminals just so that they can get on this program? And then as the cost of things keeps rising, I'm sure that the payments are going to have to increase too, which again leads to the old boring question, well, where's the money going to come from? I.e. from you and me, because I'm sure San Francisco will make some pitiful plea to the Federal Reserve saying we need more money for our state budget so we can continue this anti-violence program so that we can rebuild minority communities. And sure enough, the Treasury will open up its wallet because, when the debt is already at $23 trillion, what's a few trillion more between friends, right? There's no difference whatever in the world. But my second observation is a bit more serious. And it goes back to actually what I was saying in the second video about Afghanistan again, where I mentioned that there are still 100 Americans stranded in Afghanistan, and nobody, not the White House, not the State Department, not the Pentagon, no one seems to have the merest inkling of a clue how to actually get those Americans out and out of the crosshairs of the Taliban. Oh, especially now, since the administration actually gave the Taliban a list of their names, but that's beside the point. So this dovetails with that point, because the point I made in that last video was, how are we supposed to trust our government with our own legitimate protections and safety? You can't. When a city government declares in a stunt like this, with a program like this, that its main concern is with criminals, the well-being of criminals, in a program that has failed other times that it's been tried, then the average American citizen, the average Mr. and Mrs. America, is perfectly within his rights, and in fact has to start seriously considering, where do I fit into the picture? Is the city actually going to look after my legitimate interests? My rights, my protections as an actual law-abiding citizen? Or am I going to get dumped on the side of the road for these criminals? And then you have the deeper philosophical problem. If a government, if a political entity is concerned more with criminals, with the law breakers in society, than actually with the law keepers, with the law abiders, then can you actually say, in a question that I've repeatedly asked here on the Stone, do you actually live in a just society? And if you do not, then what is even the point of living in a civilized society? There is none. As I mentioned just a few minutes ago, you might as well become a criminal yourself, because the city isn't going to jail you. Well, unless you're a white man, but just say that you're a woman, become transgender, or make a new gender for yourself, and you'll be fine. So again, the question becomes, what reason do you have to keep obeying the law? None. Because crime doesn't pay is no longer a truism. Now crime pays. And it pays very well, to the tune of $300 a month. That's not exactly chicken feed, especially in these economic times that we're going through. Gang, I have talked for too much as usual, so I am putting a cork in it right there. So have a great weekend. Make it the best weekend that you can. Read, think, speak, write. And remain eternally hopeful. Not optimistic, but hopeful. Take care, gang, and I will see you again soon. Ciao.